Oh, I think he's in there.
Yep, there is. Hey, Coach.
Hey, sorry about that. I don't know what happened there.
No, all good, all good. So first and foremost, thank you so much for being on here with us today and taking your time. I know you guys are super busy this time of the season, and really happy that you guys have a season and got that stuff all figured out. Um, Guys, so I'm Elrick with ASM. Used to coach college golf for a really long time, and Coach Sands have done it for way longer than I have. So again, thank you for being here. Coach, if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about Texas Tech, and then we'll dive right into, how to get a golf scholarship.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on, and we connected 7 or 8 years ago, and it's been nice to stay connected. But I appreciate you having me on. So I've been at Texas Tech since '99. Came in as an assistant coach back in August of '99, and was an assistant coach there for a couple of years. Really got a break after a couple of years. Our head coach left for Stanford for the men's job, and I thought at that time, I was 26 years old, I thought I was going to be looking for another assistant's job. And fortunate for me, they gave me an opportunity at a young age to be the head coach on an interim basis, and we had some success. And so the rest has been history, and I've been there for 20 years then. So it's gone quick. It's been fantastic. We've Texas Tech is located in Lubbock, Texas, which is about 300 miles west of Dallas, and approximately about 300 miles east of Albuquerque. So we're in the high plains. We're at 3,500 feet. Universities have got about 30,000 students. So in the town of Lubbock, Texas, which is about 250,000 people. So our golf conference is the Big 12 conference, which has schools like Texas, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Baylor, Kansas State, Iowa State, TCU. So that's a little bit about myself and how I got here in our school, and can obviously tell a little bit more if we need to.
Saying you guys have been fairly successful is a massive understatement, by the way. So you don't have to be so humble. You guys have had an incredible program for a really, really long time. Really, really happy for you, Coach. So we've got these guys online with us here today, watching this stuff from all over the world. And the big question for everybody is, when you're not from the US and when you don't know how this process works, is how do you get a golf scholarship? There's so many talented kids out there. There are so many kids with dreams of playing the PGA Tour. And there are a lot of kids out there that just want to use golf as an avenue to come over and get a wonderful degree and further themselves in life that way. So if I could put you on the spot before we dive into some questions and some things that we talked about, is if you could give us, say, your best piece of advice in a sentence or two, how to get a golf scholarship.
Yeah, so the best advice is I have play tournament golf. Play tournament golf at the highest level you can. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be playing at the local and regional level, of course, but try to dominate on the level that you're at, whether that's the local, regional, if you get the opportunity, national, and then of course, international would be the final piece. But that's my biggest piece of advice is we're lucky to live in an age where the internet can connect you all over the world. There's just no substitute for getting out there and playing tournament golf.
Now, that being said, something I want to touch base on is, with everything that's gone on in the world, in the last year or so, there hasn't been any tournaments. A lot of kids have not had the opportunity to play tournament golf. And moving into 2022 and 2023 recruiting, losing a whole year, losing a whole summer like that, that's really critical for a player. And so how do schools go out for their 2022 and 2023 class and recruit players who, in fairness, have not played golf in 14 or 15 months?
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge for everyone, right? And so I do think that it's important that you try to pick up where you left off, which is difficult to do. But if you can try to get back in the events when they open up, or if you can quite simply just email what you have played in the past. Of course, most guys probably have been doing some technical work inside on their own. So that would be something that I would encourage each kid to do some videos to try to market themselves that way through their golf swing and through their previous results. But it's going to be interesting. You know, I do think the 21 class, the 22 class, and even 23 are going to be very under evaluated, if you will. So with that comes a lot of opportunities. And I think us as coaches will have to be a little more patient. I think kids are going to develop a little bit later. And so I think there's going to be some more late opportunities than there has been in the past. And so, you know, send what you have, send videos of your development over COVID. Try to market yourself in that manner. And then when things pick up in tournament golf, of course, try to jump in there and play as soon as you can.
Would you say that, you know, with there being very little information out right now for these players, that potentially, you know, using a recruiting service with somebody that used to coach college golf, that know these guys personally, that have put teams together in the past, do you think would make any sense for these players to, you know, potentially, you know, use a service like this to where we can promote on their behalf? Because you know me and you trust me more than you trust from a player that you're getting that you've never met before.
Yeah, I think so. And especially with what's going on now, there may be opportunities for some countries to have been playing where other countries haven't been. And well, one thing's for sure, the coaches can't go recruit in Division I, but there may be opportunities where you guys have seen them in tournament golf or someone has. And so the relaying of that.
I was out at Doral. I was out at the
Sure.
Orange Bowl. I watched players when you guys couldn't. So
Exactly.
You know, feet on the ground and watching these guys ourselves, I think makes a massive difference.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to have to rely upon our friends and services like yourself and colleagues in the business to help us out more than ever.
Okay. The reason I brought up the no tournaments is because that's something we get all the time from families and clients. Say, hey, is coach even going to look at me because I've not been playing? You know, this is not good, bad. It's more indifferent than anything. But I think a lot of people are in the same boat when it comes to
Absolutely.
that. So, you know, Coach, you guys are obviously one of the best golf programs in the country. When I say best, I mean like consistently a top 10 program. For anybody out there listening, it is incredibly hard to be that good for that long. And I don't think Coach Sands and them are going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah.
But at what age, Coach, would you say you start, you know, legitimately tracking players? I know you can't speak to a player until June 15th, preceding his junior year in high school. So, I mean, you can't speak with them until roughly about 2 years
Sure.
out from enrolling. But I know that you guys are looking at players from a younger age than that. What age would you say you start legitimately following players?
Another great question. You know, I do think that's a little bit hard to answer in a couple of ways, and I'll explain why. One, you know, we may be out at a tournament where we are specifically looking at one or two players that we've identified as guys we want to evaluate. But then we may also show up at an event where we're like, hey, we want to try to go see the youngest kids possible. We feel really good about our, you know, the older guys and what we have already committed. And so that's kind of a little bit of ebb and flow. But, you know, I would say we start looking at kids when they first start, you know, their high school, freshman, sophomore, right in that area. Just because we do feel like that is going to be the time that they're hopefully maybe starting to stop growing, although a lot of kids grow late like I was. But, you know, so many
I've never
kids,
grown. So.
So some guys, you know, develop and grow later. But, you know, I would say that we it's going to ebb and flow a little bit based on our needs. But if we're in an event, specifically maybe like the European Boys Championship or the British Boys, then of course we're going to try to evaluate everyone in the field. And if you're young enough to get in a field like that maybe we're visiting to watch, then of course we're going to try to evaluate that prospect. Or I know a lot of kids have been going to the European Young Masters and some different events other than just maybe the traditional events that college coaches have shown up to. But, you know, above and beyond that, of course, we're open to finding out more about young kids through services like yourself, or just doing some internet investigation based on some, you know, Faldo Series events or any events that we can get our hands on, and start to see those names earlier and earlier. And, you know, maybe one good example is I was able to see Victor Hovland. He played on the European Boys Team Championship for Norway at quite a young age. So his recruitment back then, when we could do a little bit more talking with coaches, that lasted quite a long time for myself. And even though it came down to us in Oklahoma State and he went to Oklahoma State, that would be a real long recruiting process. He went all the way to the visits. So, it went on for about 4 years. And like you said, now things have changed to where we can't contact those kids until, June 15th of a later age after their junior year. So.
Okay. So you would say, coaches looking at players 14, 15 years old is not outside of the realm of possibility, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So coach, obviously, not everybody is going to have the opportunity to attend a university like Texas Tech or, like you mentioned, Oklahoma State earlier, but there are about 900 golf programs across the country,
Sure.
Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, junior college. What would you think those coaches as a whole look for in a player to where they can identify a kid and say, you know what, this is a player that I would really like to have on my team? What can a player do leading up to that point to, kind of set himself apart from other people that just send emails and not very personal, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, it's a difficult thing, because we do get a lot of emails, and it is very difficult sometimes sifting through that and finding, things that may, obviously set themselves apart. But I think the one thing, going back to what I said, is the player who's willing to try to get out there and play. I know that's a little bit difficult with COVID, but we like kids that want to challenge themselves, and kids that are trying to play in hard tournaments, hard golf courses, and challenge themselves at the highest level. So I think that's what you can do to set apart is to challenge yourself. And that may be in different ways now. You may have to get creative with your travel to find places to play. And again, that may be impossible for your country if you can't leave there. But those are the things that I would say would in our minds would set apart players from other players. The other thing is some academics. Those are important because there are other opportunities to help your financial assistance. We've got one kid that was from Poland that was able to get some academic assistance. So that would set apart, him from another kid. Or if they're the same ability level, then obviously we're going to look at the kid who's got better marks and better grades. So those two things would be the biggest things. And then, maybe some swing videos. Not everybody puts those on their emails, but in today's day and age, it's pretty easy to get an attachment on there and finding out a little bit more about their swing and fundamentals. Maybe one swing with a driver, one swing with a shorter iron, and then maybe some chipping and putting as well.
Pitching stuff. Coach, if you don't mind, let's talk just a little bit about, various divisions. Like I said earlier, there's almost 900 golf programs out there, D1, D2, D3, et cetera, et cetera. There's going to be a place for most everybody as long as they're open-minded, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you get to this level where you're playing, solid golf, I think there's definitely going to be a spot for you, whether it's, junior college, and some junior colleges are very, very good too, but junior college and NAIA Division 1, 2, and 3 for sure.
So there's the stigma about, junior college not necessarily being the right way to go from day one. But I can name a bunch of guys who went to junior colleges, then went to great Division 1 schools, that they necessarily wouldn't have been able to get to as a freshman. Sure. But they prove their worth. They go beat the brakes off a bunch of other dudes, and coaches notice that. I always try and tell all of the people I speak with is, hey, if you're good, someone's going to notice. It doesn't Sure. matter where you play. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter what you look like. As long as you play well and you make more birdies than bogeys, coaches are going to notice. So, personally, looking back on what I did, I actually wish that I went to a junior college. Being from South Africa back in 04, 05, we didn't have, all of the tools we have now with Instagram and being able to promote yourself and services. And coaches didn't really look towards kids that they haven't seen before, because every coach likes a proven commodity. I understand that. But I think looking back on it, if I went to a junior college and I played well, I could very easily have found myself at a better Division I school in a couple of years' time. But I didn't know. I didn't know any better. And
Sure.
so a lot of what we do is just the education process. Yeah. Why don't we? What are your thoughts on the PGA Tour and partnering with college golf and handing those couple of exemptions out at the end of the year to the best players in the country? The reason I ask is we have a lot of people that always call and ask and say, hey, but is college golf really going to help me become a professional? Is it really
Right.
going to prepare me? And you've been in it for 20 years. I was in it for about 9. Me and you know the answer, but a lot of people don't. And so what are your thoughts on the PGA Tour and what they've done for college golf and now showing these things on the Golf Channel? And I guess overall, just how does college golf prepare you to play professional golf?
Yeah, so I think it's what you're seeing is it really prepares these guys for the tour. If you look at the top end, whether it's Victor Hovland, like I mentioned earlier, Colin Morikawa, there's several really good examples recently of guys who've done really well in college golf, and it translated into pretty instant success on the PGA Tour. But of course, we're talking about the high end guys, and that didn't always just necessarily the path that one takes, and that's only going to be 4 or 5 spots that are going to get those Korn Ferry starts when you for the PGA University. So even though there's only those 5 spots that get up there, there's still going to be quite a few spots. Whether it's the Latin American tour that they're going to give out, they're going to give some to the Canadian tour as well. So I think it's a great segue because if you can play college golf at a high level, you ought to get a little bit of some sort of exemption along the way. So it's really neat that they would partner with college golf. I think it's really going to help those high end players go straight onto the Korn Ferry and possibly PGA Tour. So obviously it's very exciting news, but there's a lot of pathways, right? We talked about the junior college. We've talked about a lot of things, and so there's a lot of ways to get to the top, and some things are a little more streamlined, like we mentioned, straight onto the tour now. But sometimes it takes just playing good college golf and continue to get better, and so it doesn't always happen as streamlined as what we're talking about. But hard work, I think college golf, one thing for sure it does is it prepares you from a golf course standpoint. Most of all Division I tournaments we play in, they're going to set the golf course up difficult, sometimes maybe too difficult. We're going to play in some diverse weather, especially in the spring where we get some windy conditions. And so you're really going to test your game in a lot of different conditions against a lot of good players. And there's really no substitute for that. And I feel like once you've started to make your way through college golf and play at a high level, there's no substitute for that for pro golf. And even if you look at, guys that go straight from high school to pro golf, I think some of the development tours really are playing golf, really at, I would say, substandard courses than what we're getting to play in college golf. I mean, I think last year alone, we played in 4 or 5 golf courses that hosted either PGA Tour events or major championships. So to be able to do that and play those golf courses, I would say it was a lot better than maybe playing in, a development tour and having to go shoot, 8 or 9 under par because the golf course is so easy.
You mentioned something there that I never understood it until I got out of coaching. And now I took for granted how cool some of the places where we went to go to.
Yeah.
And not just when I was at the Division I level, when I was playing in AIA golf and when I coached Division II golf. Like, I don't think people understand how much time and effort and passion goes into this from a university and an athletic department and a coach's perspective. These schools all across the board really do everything they can to set these kids up for success. And then, those 4 years in college, I truly believe has to be the 4 best years of your life, because the moment you graduate, you're paying for that own apartment and you're paying for that cell phone, and you kind of just sort of fall into adulthood, whether you want to or not. So those 4 years in college, it's got to be the best 4 years of your life, because you're never, ever going to get that back. Coach, got a question in from a dad saying, how can I, as a parent, accurately evaluate and know the level of my son in terms of what kind of a college would be good for him and what to consider? Any nugget of gold for us there?
Yeah, I do think that's a little bit difficult because each kid has a different ceiling. And when we recruit, sometimes we may be recruiting a kid on, hey, this guy is going to get better. And we see maybe some physical tools that maybe some kids don't have. But, I think that's where some of the golf unions or some of services like yourself can really help a kid try to find out where he's at and evaluate that. And, I would probably start at the highest level. If you look at the players playing, in the top 5 of a country, those are guys that are more than likely going to get recruited by the highest ranked universities. But at the same time, I've recruited kids that may be in the top 20 of their country just because I felt like their physical tools or maybe what I saw when I was able to evaluate them was able to say, hey, this kid's really good. Maybe he's just not quite figured out how to put the scores up yet. So a lot goes into that, but I would lean upon your associations, your local associations, maybe even your national associations to help you find out what kids have gone previously before you to what schools and evaluate what their play is at the same level or same age group as what your son is at right now. And so you're able to maybe match that up and say, okay, right now my son is as good as this kid was that went on to play at a Division I school. And so you'll kind of know that, or maybe he's a little bit behind. He hasn't quite had the success that person had. So maybe you know that you need some improvement to get to that Division I level. So I would rely upon the local people first, maybe your local pro or teacher that's helping you. It's a pretty small golf circles. I mean, it doesn't take long to get some pretty good advice from people who know what college golf is and what level you need to be at.
Something you mentioned there that I think is very important for people to know is you basically said, comparison. Am I as good as another player that went to a specific school? Now, that's a great tool for a player and a family to use to give them an idea of what is achievable. But from a coach's perspective, when it comes to the recruiting part of things, you're also evaluating players in specific tournaments based on who do they beat. It's not always just the number you put on the board. Like we both know you can play the Lytham Trophy and shoot 77, 77, 77, 77 and finish 5th.
Sure.
And a bunch of really, really good players. And then the scores kind of go out the window a little bit and you start looking towards those head-to-heads. Okay, I know this player. I think this player is a good player. Obviously, This player is consistently beating this player. So not just for families and players to be able to evaluate themselves based on competition, but also from the coach's standpoint, a player that consistently beats good players is always going to have a really good chance. And that just speaks to your point that you mentioned earlier. When you say go out, challenge yourself, play in hard events, play in harder tournaments. I think the more you can get yourself out there and play against those really good players that people know of, they might not know about you just yet, but you keep beating those guys, they are at some point in time going to find out who you are.
Yeah.
So
and I think the other thing that you're going to find is once you start pushing yourself in those situations, I think that's where the kid starts to say, hey, I can play with these guys. And so when you're able to challenge yourself at the highest level, you intuitively figure out, hey, you compare yourself to maybe that player that may be playing a little bit better than you, and you can compare yourself. What do I need to get better in? And that pushes a kid to say, hey, I can be as good as this guy. This guy isn't doing that much more special than me. And it's just going to take a little bit more maybe belief in myself, or maybe a little bit more work on my short game because I hit the ball just as good as this kid. So I think that comparison's a good thing to help you get placed, but it's also a good thing to help push you competitively so that you can see that, as we say in Texas, man, I put my pants on one leg at a time just like he does. So I can go get that guy.
Al Sutton said, Tiger have 2 legs and 2 arms just like me.
Yeah, exactly.
I can beat him. You said something there about how certain players, you might look at a player and be like, oh, if I just did a little something different, if I just worked a little bit harder. I think that speaks a lot to you know, different players peak at different times. Different players mature at different times. And everyone's college journey and recruiting journey is different. It's never going to be the same across the board for everybody. Some players become really, really good at 14 or 15 and they kind of level out. And there are other guys out there who kind of peak at 16 or 17. And so it's never going to be the same for just everybody. And I think that the really good coaches and the guys who built really good programs, they're aware of all of that. And they take into consideration all of the different aspects of the thing, right?
Yeah, no question. I think there's so much to evaluate in a kid's game, and that's why there's no substitute than getting out there and seeing for yourself that particular player. So even though, and that's why we would rely upon guys like you who we trust, who've been in the business, to go out there and see for yourself. And so I think those things that maybe we sometimes know intuitively that we pick up on, but those things are, important for a kid to hear about. And that's, how do you carry yourself in the tournament? How do you carry yourself when you meet some adversity? Because we all know that's very important in this game. So those small things, kind of like those two things I mentioned, how am I doing when I'm playing well? Am I going to get to 1 or 2 under and just kind of stop, or can I have the ability to keep pressing on? All those things are, maybe things that we pick up on, and it's not necessarily bad when you fail. It's just things that we need to see that we can say, oh, I can definitely help this kid, or is this kid, hyper aggressive and maybe I like that because he's not afraid of hitting driver everywhere and trying to go make a score, or vice versa. Is he playing scared, and maybe I can help the kid be a little more aggressive. So, you start to pick up on some things that may help you make an evaluation, so that if you do end up recruiting the kid and he comes to your school, then you may be able to help him get to the next level.
So let's talk a little bit about consistency here. And I just made a note, golf is an individual sport, but in college it's a team game. And the team comes first, and coaches don't necessarily just want to know how good your good is. They also want to know how bad your bad is. Right. It's all good and well to go out there and shoot 70-70, but you can't back that up the day that you struggle and shoot 80 or 82. Consistency. What do you guys look for in a player from a consistency standpoint as they're growing up?
Well, the number one thing I think that contributes to consistency is a good short game. Because, the days that, you may hit 15 greens, okay, those are the days that you can go shoot a low number. But maybe the days, like we mentioned, that are tough weather, windy conditions, and you only can hit 7 or 10 greens, can you still go scratch out, an even par round or something respectable? And so usually a good short game keeps you from shooting that really high score. I think also, obviously, attitude things. And, one of the things that I absolutely hate to see is a kid giving up, or, a kid that may be having a bad day, and you can tell that he doesn't want to be there. So, but I think the biggest thing for consistency is sorry about that.
That's okay. A little free branding out there. That's fine.
Yeah. Another call came in. So the biggest thing that I think contributes to being consistent is having a good short game. So anytime you can develop that would be my advice. And then just being well-rounded, trying to understand other parts of the game, whether it's fitness, nutrition, the mental aspects of the game. I think those are the things that we're probably doing a poor job of developing kids. We're really spending too much time in the technical box. And so try to get outside of that technical box and look at how many other areas you can develop in your life to be a better golfer. And, that could be socially, that can be mentally, that can be physically. There's just so much to the game of golf that I think sometimes gets put on the shelf because we spend too much time in the technical world.
When we talk about, and myself and coaches, we always throw this word around. When we talk about the right fit for a player and a university, what does that mean to you? And what does that mean to some of the people that I'm working with when I say we've got to find the right school for you, the right fit? What does that mean?
Yeah, I think it's a mutual interest, right? I mean, is the school a good fit? Is means a lot. If we can bring you on a visit I think that really helps because you can, as a prospect, you can see, feel, and almost touch everything, and see from your perspective whether you like the facilities, whether you like the coaches, whether you like the student body and the vibe of the university. So that's a pretty easy thing to figure out when you're able to have a visit. I know we're talking in COVID years right now, we're not visiting schools, and so finding that fit is a little more difficult. But it's also a coach that understands you as a person, and you understanding what he is a coach and trying to develop a relationship there that seems like, hey, this is a good fit. I think this guy can get me to the next level. I think this is the type of school I want to be at, that I can get to the next level. Are you a kid that wants good weather all year round? Or are you a kid that doesn't mind having, a little bit of a winter so you can get maybe inside and do more technical work? I think there's just so many things that go into trying to figure out, a magical question is a good fit. And I've made the mistake of recruiting a kid that just had good scores. And I probably thought this is not a good fit from maybe an emotional standpoint. I could kind of tell there was some things missing there, and from a probably personality standpoint that I usually like to see. And it ended up being a bad fit. And even though the kid, really played well at a high level, won an international event by several strokes. So, it would look really good on paper, but I knew in my heart that may not be a good fit. And it turned out that intuition was correct. So I think you have to feel really good about several factors, and you have to do some research. Does the school have the major you want as far as an educational standpoint? So I would just try to do your research on what do you think you need to make yourself successful, not only in golf, but educationally, and try to explore those schools from a standpoint of, okay, now is it going to be a good fit with a coach, and get to know them. So great question. I think there's a lot of meat there to go over in a short amount of time.
I know. I figured I'd put you on the spot.
Yeah.
I'm going to open myself up for some critique here from your side, and feel free to not leave anything on the table. But when I speak to people and they ask me the right fit question, I always say rankings are fickle, numbers are fickle, they change. I like to start the conversation by saying, look, let's blank out names, let's blank out divisions, right? First and foremost, you have to find a school where you're going to be happy, healthy, and safe. Okay, so safe obviously speaks for itself. Healthy means a good friends, a good social group, eating enough. Hang on, give me a second. Eating enough, sleeping well, good nutrition, good working out. Mentally being healthy has become so important. So just a good support system around you. And then lastly, and the first thing I said was being happy.
Sure.
Happy to me means be on a team where you are a part of something bigger than just yourself. You're getting to play even if you struggle a little bit, because if you're just staying at home hitting balls, even if you're at the super nice fancy school with all the bells and the whistles, you're really not getting any better. You've got to be able to travel and play, a place where you can get better every day. And what I mean by that is, even if you're in a location where, it's not 80 degrees and sunny every single day, you've got good facilities, or you've got competition around you, and there's good short games going on. And so I believe, if you can find that happy, healthy, and safe balance, I truly believe that then you have found something that's a good fit for you, and you can blank the name of the school and you can blank the division. As long as you can find that, and you can get better every day at what you like to do, I think that's a good spot for you.
Sure. That's a great point. I think, most of the time kids want to maybe go to the best university they can in terms of competitively, but that may not be the best thing if you don't get to play early. And we've had that happen here, where it's been a great fit from the standpoint of we like the player likes us, but maybe because of the level of the team and the level that the player's playing at, he's not able to get those early opportunities, and he becomes a little bit unhappy because he's not traveling on the road. And so, I would definitely consider those, how hard or how easy, or, what are you looking for? Is that going to bother you? You know, I try to tell the guys that are not making the travel squad, hey, this could be the best thing for you if you keep getting pushed to make the travel squad. But also at the end of the day, you know, there becomes probably a time and place to say, hey, look, if you haven't started playing consistently, maybe by year 2, then then maybe it's time to look at another school or to transfer or whatnot. So I think you bring up a really valid point with the playing time and you know how you'll approach that is different for each kid. Some kids want to go to the best school and try to get better that way. Some kids maybe want to say, hey, I want to go to a place that I know that, you know, I'm probably going to be the number 1 player here, and that's what I'm looking for. So trying to identify that may be a little bit difficult, but you should be able to know that, you know, potentially by the size of the offer of the scholarship and maybe the roster size and some various things that obviously you'd be able to help them with and those intricacies of picking a school.
So you just mentioned scholarship size, roster size. You know, we get that question all the time. Okay, well, how can I get a full scholarship? And just for everybody out there, completely being honest, whenever I've coached, we've never offered more than 67% to anybody. You know, rosters are between 9 to 12 across all various different divisions. So Division 1 level, there's only 4.5 full scholarships. I shouldn't say full scholarships, only 4.5 scholarships to divide between that roster. The Division 2 level, it's only 3.6. I tell people all the time, look at it more or less like a salary cap for a professional sports team, where coaches are trying to put pieces together and build the best possible roster they can. How do coaches go about offering, you know, those scholarships, and how do they get to the point where they feel comfortable with a specific number for a specific player?
Man, that's a great question that, again, is pretty intricate as well. But I will say this: I think the most important thing is that we're looking for is what we talked about as a good fit. Of course, you know, we're getting paid to win, right? So we're also looking for guys that are playing at a high level. And so, like you mentioned, us too, you know, we may get up to that 75% level, but that's about as high of the offers that we're going to offer, just because we can really stretch that 75% and make it feel like you're not paying for anything, whether that's maybe taking a limited number of hours, 12 hours, or maybe not getting the full meal plan or not the, you know, the fanciest of dorms. So we may be able to stretch that 75%, and then particularly with the cost of attendance piece of the scholarship. You know, if we don't give that piece of the equation, then really a 75% scholarship is really is almost like a full scholarship. Yeah. So
you tax some academic money, and then you tax some academic money onto that.
Right.
So for anybody listening, what these universities do is they basically stack scholarships, right? So you'll get an athletic grant, and then you'll get an academic grant if you qualify for that based on your grades and your SAT score. And I know that, you know, coach, I believe, will echo my sentiments when I say this. If coach is looking at 2 players on a piece of paper in front of him that have very, very similar results, coach has gone, he's watched these guys, he believes in their golfing ability very similarly. But the one player has just better grades, a better SAT score. Coach is always going to lean towards that player more so than the other player. You know, college golf gets really, really busy. You've got to manage your time exceptionally well. You're going to be on the road a lot. So just, you know, trying to stand out in that process by showing coach, hey, I can take care of my business, whether I'm on the road or whether I'm at home, just gives coach that extra bit of confidence that, hey, I can take this guy for a week or for 2 weeks or whatever, and he's always going to get his business done. Sounds pretty fair, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, there's so many facets to the recruiting piece and trying to find that good fit. And I think you hit a home run with a few of those points about how you can separate yourself. And you know, there's not only the SAT, there's the TOEFL score if you're not an English speaking country. And so there's so many small things that you can be doing to help yourself out there with even maybe getting your English a little bit better as well. So yeah, great points that you make there.
Coach, I know you're really busy, so I'm not going to keep you much longer. One question that I get all the time is, what does a normal day or a normal week in the life of a collegiate athlete look like when they're on campus?
Yeah, it's a busy time. We just for general purposes, we get 20 hours a week. That's what the NCAA mandates, that we can either have them playing or practicing or working out. So we have 20 hours a week now. I'll say this: most of the players are putting in hours of their own time just because they love the game, and certainly the seems like the higher level players are putting in that extra work because they know they need it. But a typical week, we have workouts. Like this morning, we have early morning workouts at 6:15. That's on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So after those workouts, the guys have from about 8 to noon to get in some class time. They'll usually have 2 or 3 classes on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and 2 or 3 classes on a Tuesday, Thursday morning. And then the afternoons from around 1:30 to 4:30 or 5, we'll have either practice for them or qualifications for the tournament. Normally for us, we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday practice. Tuesday, Thursday are qualifying days. And then we throw in Saturdays as well as a qualifying day. Sunday's usually an off day, unless we're at a tournament and we take an off day maybe during the week. So, and then they have study time from, once we finish the day on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe that's around 5 o'clock. Then they usually go home, get some dinner and get some studies in. So that's a typical Monday. Tuesday, like I said, we'll have the qualifications, which is usually 18 holes. And that's usually, from 2 to 6. We have to get that in 4 hours. And then, so kind of rinse and repeat every week. And then, this week happens to be a week that we're leaving for a tournament on Saturday. So we'll leave Saturday morning for a tournament, and it'll look up, quite different on a competitive week. But we also, just so we have a 144-day playing season. So, that usually lasts from, say, September 1st to November 1st in the fall. And then the spring, we usually start up mid-January, January 15th, and go all the way until May. So that makes up the playing season, 144 days. We get 24 competition days. So normally between, 8 to 10 tournaments. The tournaments that are 36-18 only count 2 days against those 24 competition days. And then we have 3-day events, which count 3 days against those competition days. So that's a quick breakdown of what a week looks like, or a typical day, and then a few numbers to plant in your head about competition days and playing season days.
Okay, now we've covered a lot in a really short time here. So I'm going to give everybody a breather. And Coach, I'm going to ask you to tell me about, your coolest experience as a coach, and why should a kid come play college golf? Like, why do these coaches do what they do? Why do we wake up at the crack of dawn and we take recruiting phone calls at 2 a.m? And so,
Right.
Yeah, just to recap, your favorite moment, not favorite, but one of your highlights in coaching, why you do what you do, and maybe why college golf is a great thing for a lot of people.
Well, I'll give you a recent example. It may not be the top moment, but the recency may move it up there, just from a standpoint of for you guys to maybe look up the results and see how crazy this game is. But we had a kid named Kyle Hogan that just won the Merido Collegiate this fall, and since he won that tournament, he actually was able to get into a PGA Tour event. But let me back up. When he was started this summer, he was a very good amateur player. He played here for 3 years, was probably enjoying the highest level of success that he had entering the early part of his summer. Well, toward the end of the summer, things weren't going well at all. He kind of lost his game, pretty much finished last in the stroke play portion of the U.S. Amateur, started to really struggle mentally. And probably 2.5 weeks into the fall season, he which we were fortunate enough to be able to play with COVID going on, he basically had lost it. He had been shooting probably 74 was his low, all the way to 82. Our golf courses around our town, aren't, terribly difficult. If you go play well, you should shoot under par. So he obviously was struggling he wasn't making the travel squad. And here's a player that had been basically in our top 2 And so we just decided to take a break from golf. It had gotten that bad. He was pretty much in tears in my office, and we hugged it out and we talked about it, and golf just needed to take a back burner for a while. So he took a good 10 days off of golf, came back, and he missed the tournament at Merido, or excuse me, he missed the tournament at the Big 12 at Colonial. So he missed a couple of tournaments, which ate him up, but because he'd been playing almost every week for us, and took a break. And I quite honestly didn't know how long it was going to take him to get back in form, but I cared about him first and foremost as a player, as a person, then a player. And he came off the 10 days, started playing a little bit better. We decided just to give him an individual spot in the tournament. We didn't even play him in the top 5 of our traveling squad. And so he hadn't shot under par in our qualifiers in, I think, 8 rounds of qualification. And he goes to the event as an individual and plays the hardest course, probably arguably in Texas. And only one guy ended up under par for the week because the conditions were brutal, 30-mile-an-hour wind, and it was him. So here's a guy that hadn't broken par, and all of a sudden he, had one of the best weeks of his life, made it, won the tournament, made about an 8-footer on the last hole. And that meant a lot because, he wasn't just a player. He was a person that I loved and that I cared for. And this had a happy ending. It doesn't always end like that. Some kids, lose it and may never get their form back. But that was a recent story just to experience that with him. He's an older player. For him to lose it and come back in that way was just a fantastic story. I don't think I've ever seen a guy struggle quite that much and then go win a tournament that's on that caliber of golf course where, so I think the average score was about 77 or 78 that week. And he was the only guy that broke par for 3 rounds.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
You watch these guys go to class and you watch them interact with their friends and you watch them, really, really leave everything on the range and at the facility. And when they do happen to play well, it's just so cool. It's just so happy for them. And that's awesome. I'm really happy for him, and I'm happy for you guys. And for everybody listening, when you find the right coach, they're going to care for you as a person, before they care for you as a player. I always tell players, find a coach that's going to care for you off the golf course more than he's going to care for you on it. And then I think that's a recipe for, success and just a really good relationship, because adversity in golf goes hand in hand, and you're not always going to play well. It is just fact of the matter. You're not always going to play well. So
scores are going to come and go, right? Scores come and go, but people don't, and relationships are forever. And that's the most important thing.
Coach, I can't think of a better, I asked you other couple of questions, but nothing you're going to tell me is going to top what you just told me. So I don't think we have to look at any of the other things. To everybody out there, just 2 quick thank yous from my end. First and foremost, Coach, I know you're busy leaving for a tournament this weekend. Thank you so much for your time and all the information you gave all of our guys and everybody across the world listening. And then secondly, this was all made possible for us through the Faldo Series and through Matt Faldo and through Sir Nick Faldo. And so I just want to thank them and want to thank you one last time. And Coach, travel safe, test negative, and go make more birdies than bogeys.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and all the best to everyone out there. And thank you so much for having me on. Hopefully it was helpful, and hit them straight and make some putts, right?
From a personal note, thank you for always being available, always picking up the phone, always lending an ear. You've done this for almost 10 years, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy. Have a good one.
Good boy. See you guys later. Thanks, guys.